SPR Rant video. Alright, so today we're going to try to answer 3 questions. What SPR? Why SPR? And who SPR? To SPR or to not SPR, if you will. Alright, so first of all, what SPR? What is an SPR? SPR, DMR, DM. All right, what we're really talking about, the role is designated marksman, DM. The rifle that the designated marksman shoots would be the designated marksman rifle, a DMR. The Navy SEALs during the Global War on Terrorism wanted to increase the ability of their forward deployed operators while minimizing the amount of extra gear they carried. So they came up with a concept of the SPR, the special purpose receiver. Not even rifle, half of a rifle, the upper receiver. The point was that an operator already using Mark 262 77 grain open tip match for his general fighting loadout, which is most of them did, could just swap upper receivers and have a upper receiver with a little bit longer barrel and bipods and a magnified optic on it, and without having to change ammunition, without having to change magazines, without having to bring an entire rifle, it's just half of a rifle, without having to swap the pouches that he has to accommodate for different magazines or different caliber. He could now fill the role of a designated marksman, right? So one operator just brings all of his normal assaulter gear and then brings one additional upper receiver, and now all of a sudden he can not only be an assaulter but also fill the role of a designated marksman and flip back and forth simply by swapping his upper receiver and not much else. All right, so the internet kind of caught on to the fact that a special purpose receiver in its implementation in the Global War on Terror was 5.56, and that also a lot of designated marksmen throughout history, to include current times, do utilize a larger caliber than everybody else, right? If everybody else is shooting 5.56, often the DM will have a 308 rifle. The internet caught on to that and was like, DMR is 308, SPR is 5.56, and then they just don't even talk about the term DM because they're more focused on gear than the actual task. But so yeah, technically yes, the SPR was 5.56, but that's just because they were using 5.56 for the primary rifles, right? If you're shooting whatever other caliber of a primary rifle, 6 ARC, 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, 7.62 by 3.9, 5.4, 5 by 3.9, whatever, you could build an upper receiver in that caliber that was more of a precision upper receiver, and it kind of by definition would be a special purpose receiver irregardless of what caliber it was, so long as it maintained the concept of being able to give an additional role by simply swapping an upper receiver. And to that standpoint, a DMR is just the rifle that the DM has. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? There's been dudes that had M16A4s with ACOGs in Fallujah, and they were considered the DMRs or whatever, right? Because they had a magnified optic, 4-power ACOG, and everybody else just had irons. Whatever the case, right? So just to go ahead and put that out there, right? So I kind of swap between all the... What we're talking about in this series is designated marksman. I don't give a fuck what gun you have. I have built out an SPR in 5.56 for me. We'll talk about some of that here in a second. Why all that makes sense for me and why I did that. But as I have in some of my previous videos, same reasons Navy SEALs did it for the most part. But it's not the point. The point isn't whether you have a SPR, a DMR, or a 308, or a 5.56, or a 6.5 Creedmoor, whatever the fuck. I don't care. We're talking about the task and the roles and the skills necessary to accomplish that role. All right, so this is the last and only rant, hopefully, that I talk about all that. But there you go, 4 minutes of it. Enjoy. why SPR, right? So a lot of reasons, and I'm trying to figure out where I should start. Firstly, let's say most people that are thinking that, there's a crossover between the militia and tactics and preppers and survival. Most people that are into one at least have thought about the other, right? Okay. So for anybody building out an SPR or a DMR rifle or whatever the case is, whether it's an additional rifle or your only rifle, gives you the increased ability. Not only can this rifle still fill the role of a rifleman, I can buddy rush with it, I could clear rooms with it, etc., etc. It takes a magazine of a common caliber, blah blah blah. But now I have the ability to do survival stuff with it, right? This can be my hunting rifle. This can be my scouting rifle. This can be an observation tool, right? So instead of just having a 10.5 inch with a red dot, I still retain largely, I know a bunch of people are going to get butthurt about this, I still retain largely a lot of those capabilities in the fact that I can still clear a room if I really need to. But now I have a bunch of other capabilities that lend themselves to a more survival lone man on the ranch scenario, as opposed to I'm in SEAL Team 6 scenario, right, which is a little less likely for the civilian. Caveating off that, again, if this is a conflict, going back to tactical world, out of survival world, there's a good chance that we're going to be more of a guerrilla force, kind of no matter what, right? If it's peer on peer or if it's against the military, a organized military, like the Russians. The Russians, guys, or China, they're the bad guys. Yeah. If we're having to fight China, when China invades, they'll be very short, and we'll have to fight them. Okay? And when we do that, when we're fighting China, there's a good chance we'll have to be a guerrilla force. So harassing fires and ambushes are going to be the name of the game. So being able to have precision fires, right? Kind of flexing out of that rifleman role into almost like a sniper role, right? That DMR or that SPR allows us to do that. Though a lot of the series I'm talking about, you're not a sniper, you're not a sniper, you're not a sniper. Well, if I had to go out and play sniper a little bit, I'd much rather do that with a 16, 18, 20 inch with a magnified optic or at least an LPVO, as opposed to a 11.5 inch with a red dot. I'm going to be much more effective. And then probably the last major reason of why SPR is we don't have access to belt feds. Now, we are bridging this gap by kind of playing with auto rifles in the year of 2025. But I would argue even a legitimate auto rifle like the IAR implemented by the Marine Corps is still relying on increased accuracy as opposed to sustained high volume from a belt fed. So even if we go down the light support weapon roll and we have an FRT and we're carrying 18 mags on us or whatever the case is, still a little bit we're going to have to kind of be in the wheelhouse of the accuracy, precision, SPR type thing, right? We're not going to be able just to sling 1,000 rounds downrange, swap a barrel, and keep on chugging. Which means we're going to have to slow our rates and increase our accuracy to accomplish the same task. So, long-winded way of saying, due to logistical constraints, equipment constraints, I believe the SPR or the DMR is the civilian replacement for the belt fed. And just in case you're wondering, this is not a new thing for me. Pretty much, as right when I was exiting the Marine Corps, I came to this conclusion. I was thinking about what I'm going to do, how I'm going to organize my prepper and tactical life now that I don't live directly adjacent to 100 of my best assaulter friends. And the answer was SPR. SPR is the answer. It is the way. All right. Now, last, who SPR? Not everybody, and that's okay. This is a specialty system. if we have a squad of 8 or 13 guys, we do not want everybody to have an SPR. We want some guys with lighter rifles that are more mobile, more agile, and able to get into tighter spaces, able to stow those rifles away and go hands-on, able to use other special equipment, right? We want other specialties, not just everyone having the same specialty, etc., right? Without going too far down this rabbit hole. So that's just to say, if you don't meet some of these things that I'm talking about as, requirements, I'm going to gatekeep the SPR real quick. I'm just trying to be real with you, right? Play to your strengths, not your weaknesses, right? So if all the stuff that I'm about to say, which is what you need to utilize the SPR, is not your strength, that's okay. Just do what is your strength. We don't need everybody to have the SPR. We just need some people to have the SPR. All right. So, probably not a beginner, right? If this is your first rifle, if you're just getting in the tactical world, etc., focus on the basics. Be just a general rifleman. Focus on that. Get a grasp on that. Same point, right? If you're just starting shooting, this is going to take everything, the accuracy and the distances and the ballistics and all that to a level that's crazy. And you could get there quick. I'm not saying like you have to be shooting 10 years before you can do this. But if you don't even understand the basic fundamentals of marksmanship, right? If zeroing your rifle with a red dot is difficult, it's probably not yet time to run out and spin foreground on an SPR rifle, okay? Just go ahead and keep focusing on the fundamentals of marksmanship. And if and when you become a really good shot with the basic systems at basic ranges, then it would be time to think about, all right, let's stretch our legs, let's increase the level of precision we want to take, etc. And then the other caveat is going to be math, right? This is a lot of numbers, right? The last video we did, dope charts, was probably, if you don't like numbers or math, went cross-eyed looking at all that. Possibly even some of the videos before that, right? So hopefully you're already realizing this is a lot of numbers. So if you are not good with numbers, you are probably not going to be good with precision shooting. And again, that's okay. Just, find what you are good at and do that. So that's my designated marksmanship ramble. See you on the next one.